This machine will have eyes, ears, and a voice.
This is PVP Television News.
And ask Russell George if he would please take my place and tell us all about Cardiff.
Thank you. I'm very pleased to be invited, thank you Bruce, tonight. And although you've invited me to update you, as soon as I heard John Constable was coming, it was very much me coming to be updated. Because from a UK perspective, I'm looking forward to what John has to say, especially given the news we've heard today as well. I haven't had time to digest today's news, so perhaps John hasn't either, but I'm looking forward to hearing his perspective on that. I tend to speak hopefully less than a quarter of an hour to allow more time for questions, but of course my questions will be related more to my job as an Assembly member, and if there are questions that are better fielded at Glyn when he arrives or John, then that can be done at the end of the meeting. The only thing I will say from a Westminster point of view is there was some very helpful, a very helpful reshuffle to the UK Cabinet a few months back. The Prime Minister appointed John Hayes as the Minister within the Department of Energy and Climate Change, and we all knew straight away that was a very, very helpful appointment to us, because we know John's got very strong views on wind farms. That would be very helpful to us. And that was the most significant appointment. And also Owen Paterson was appointed a minister, an environment minister. And we know Owen Paterson, a neighbouring MP, has got very strong views as well, and ones which we would all share. And also the new Secretary of State for Wales, David Jones, is also on record as stating some views which are very helpful to what we want him to say. So there were three very important points that were given, cabinet positions that were made just recently. From the Assembly's point of view, there isn't a great deal of recent news, I got to say. I regularly stand up on my feet in the chamber, and if I don't talk about wind farms or Newtown traffic, other Assembly members are quite shocked. That's all I seem to talk about. And in fact, only this Tuesday I asked the First Minister a question, and what usually happens is I ask a question and then he stands up and answers a different question to the one I asked. And it's very frustrating, so what I tend to do now is, knowing that he won't answer my question, I get up and I make a bit of a preamble and a bit of a statement instead to tie him down. But the First Minister has unfortunately betrayed Mid Wales, and he made some very helpful statements last June after the protest. He said everything we'd want him to say, and I suspected then that he wasn't going to keep to his word, and I was very dubious of what he said, but I welcomed what he said and praised him and said what a great person he was for standing up for Mid Wales, that there was no need for the substation or the connection project. And the reason I did that, of course, is to tie him down. So on record, we're tying him down to what he said. But over a period of time, he backtracked on what he said. And knowing, of course, that the National Grid were about to make their announcement over the summer period, just before the summer recess, at the end of June, beginning of July, I asked the First Minister during First Minister's questions. I stood to my feet and I said, my constituents will want to know, do you stand by your word that there is no need for a substation or the connection project, or the Mid Wales connection project as is proposed? And he said, I stand by those words. And those are on record on my website, russellgeorge.com. I've got a section on wind farms and pylons, and from the record of proceedings, so every word is accurate. Every time I make a statement, I ask a question, I put it on the website, and I put the reply that was given. So anyone with any doubt, they can check the record of proceedings. So the First Minister was very clear on what he said to me before the summer recess. And of course, was that a month, 6 weeks later, National Grid then made their announcement, and the First Minister then put out a statement, or the Welsh Government put out a statement, welcoming the announcement and saying what benefits this would bring for Mid Wales, and people should engage. And he talked about community benefits, which a lot of us are not quite sure what they actually are. So that's what the First Minister's, from my point of view, the First Minister has let the people of Mid Wales down. I actually asked a question to the First Minister on Tuesday, actually, as it happens, and I'll read it out because to make sure I don't get anything wrong. But this is an example of how you get the First Minister answering a question to which he's not asked. I said to him, "The people of Montgomeryshire will hope that the halting of the Mid Wales Connection project will be high on your agenda, as Welsh ministers will undoubtedly have the final say on whether a critical substation at Trefeglwys should be given planning permission. I draw your attention to the comments made by John Hayes, the Minister of State at the Department of Energy and Climate Change, who said, 'We can no longer have extremely inefficient and costly wind farms imposed upon communities. Enough is enough. Do you agree with him?' Well, to most of us, that's a fairly straightforward question. First Minister, in that case, he must adjust the UK government's policy. That's not what I asked him. If the UK government has the responsibility for grid connections and larger wind farm applications, his comments must be directed at that particular minister. Well, I was asking his opinion. With regards to any application for a substation, that in the first instance is a matter for Powys County Council and not the Welsh Government. Well, it's factually correct, but Powys County Council's decision will almost certainly be called in by the Welsh Government, and the Welsh Government will have the final say on the substation. We do know that the substation at Trefeglwys, when an application comes in, that decision will be made in Wales by Powys County Council or called in by the Welsh Government. We know that. And of course, without the substation, there's no pylons, and without pylons, there's no wind farms. So without that, we won't be sitting here tonight. So those are the kind of issues that I've got confronting in Cardiff with Carwyn Jones and his backtracking and his unfortunately letting the population of Mid Wales down. And of course I regularly get copied in to people asking Carwyn Jones to come to Mid Wales, and Carwyn Jones's office just ignoring that question. So I could say more, but if I can, I'll just at that point perhaps ask for some questions. Otherwise, I'll ramble on about all sorts of things. So I'll leave it there. If there's a question that's not related to specifically my area, perhaps it will be better to be left towards the end of the meeting. But we can judge that as the questions come forward, perhaps. How do you want to proceed, Chairman?
Sisley from Wyford. Russell, what difference has the new Secretary of State for Wales made so far, in your opinion?
I think, if that's all right, that's a question I think would be better addressed to Glyn, I think, if that's all right.
I'm just wondering if it's had any impact on Cardiff.
I can't say, well, it has had an impact, but from the point of view of our campaign, I don't know any discussions between David Jones and Carwyn Jones on this issue. I've got to say I don't know that, but I mean David Jones's views are on record, and he's got his strong views. Obviously now he's a member of the cabinet. The cabinet all have to sort of sing off the same hymn sheet to an extent, but we know that we've got friends within the cabinet. So David Jones's views will be, will perhaps not be as public as we might want them to be. Though I will, when Glyn comes, I'll briefly summarise what I've said and perhaps ask him to comment as well on that.
I was just wondering, is there any plans by the Welsh Assembly Government to review the 10-8 policy?
Okay, did everyone hear the question? Yeah? Okay, the question, well, I'll just repeat. The question was, is there any plans by the Welsh Government to review TAN8? And the answer is no. They've said on a number of occasions they're not going to review TAN8. And but there is a planning bill that is coming forward over the next 2 years, and there is in the recent, there's a recent committee, the Environment and Sustainability Committee, did a report on energy, and I would have liked that report to say we want to review a TAN 8, but there wasn't the political will within that committee, which is no surprise, because the political makeup of the committee is such that you wouldn't have the support for that. But there was a acceptance within the committee that renewable energy should be looked at, and there should be a wider, broader range of renewable energies. And there was so there's a recommendation within that which the government accepted. That I don't want to sort of misquote anything here, but the feeling is that TAN 8 is coming to the end of its days. I think that was a recognition within the committee that had support, and that when the new planning bill comes forward, you would hope that there would be TAN 8 would then be superseded by something else. But the answer, the disappointing answer, is no, they won't review TAN 8. And they just repeatedly, flat-pointedly said there is a contradiction, and they give to the First Minister, when he gets asked about this, he says, well, TAN 8 doesn't matter, because the UK government is just going to do what they want, and they're going to override everything that we decide here in Wales. So that's what the Carwyn-Jones often uses. TAN 8's irrelevant. Will you review it? Well, no, we think it's a robust policy and it's the right policy. So there's a contradiction.
Right. When Carwyn-Jones was, I believe, as Environment Minister in 2005, when this ugly TAN 8 really said, there was words within the document that any monetary compensations, or whatever you like to call this bribery, that the energy companies would offer communities had no bearing whatsoever on planning applications, i.e. planning cannot be bought. So why do we have the likes of Carwyn-Jones, who I had the dubious pleasure of meeting face-to-face last year, and slimy isn't the word for him, slipping and sliming and denying everything that he says. And we have John Griffiths and things saying if people won't fall over backwards for community benefit, they must be bribed into accepting it. Why is he not challenged on this bribery and corruption within the planning department?
I'm a bit conscious as well, because I'm being filmed as well, on how I answer this, if it's on record. But
can you just challenge him then next time you see him and ask him why he never replies to me when I ask him to come and see us, even if he does need the Pope to come with him?
I did actually see one of your emails and his replies, and I mean, people should write to Carwyn-Jones, and I encourage people to write to Carwyn-Jones. And even though sometimes you get a reply back from somebody on his behalf, the more correspondence we can... Correspondence and letters and lobbying like that changes politicians' minds. The more letters people get, the better. I send letters to David Cameron, to George Osborne, to Ed Davey. Send the letters, because although they don't personally look at those letters and write a nice little letter back to you and sign it, then they will know the amount of letters that they're receiving each week. Somebody will say, well, we've had... He
still never, ever acknowledges the fact that he's been asked. He doesn't even say, no, stop asking, it's embarrassing, I'm not coming, not now, not ever.
Yes. Well, what you want to do is you want to write a letter. I've seen some of your letters. They're about 50,000 pages long, and all with good points. But, I mean, what you want to do is write a letter with just one question in. Because that's what I ask a question in the chamber, knowing that I'm not going to get an answer to my question, rather than give lots of preamble and then ask 20 questions, because then what happens is you'll only answer one or two of the questions you've asked. So you want to write a letter specifically with one question, and you will get an answer to that. I'd be surprised if you didn't. So that's my advice: send a letter with one question in saying, will you please come to Mid Wales? But because you need to be a bit more specific, you need to invite him to something specific, otherwise you just get a very general, wishy-washy reply back.
When TAN 8 was first formulated, is it or is it not written within that document that they promised to review it every third year? And it's now, 7 years old, and it's never been reviewed. So what argument is there for them not to review it?
Well, the Welsh Government say they have reviewed it last year, which...
When was it published?
They said they've reviewed it. They said they reviewed it as part of an overarching review of planning. It was reviewed within that. But it wasn't reviewed, and it hasn't been reviewed. In fact, I found a letter last year, actually, that a constituent, well, not somebody within Montgomeryshire, somebody from another area of Wales found a letter from the Welsh Government stating that TAN 8 would be reviewed the following year. And I challenged the First Minister on that, and in the committee, actually, or it was at the Environment Minister, and the answer that I received back, well, they said it was reviewed as part of the overarching, that was a previous government, and it was reviewed as part of an overarching review of planning. I mean, it was just a get-out answer. I mean, they're not going to review TAN 8, and as far as I'm concerned, I mean, I think perhaps for our issues around here, we've gone beyond that in any case. I mean, the point is that it frustrates me, of course, because whenever Carwyn Jones or the Welsh Government get challenged on the issues we've got here in Mid Wales, we get the answer, well, they're making the decisions in Westminster. Yes, but we are where we are because of you. I mean, that's the case. I mean, basically, TAN 8. I mean, is everybody aware of what TAN 8 is? Yes. Okay. Because sometimes you come to a lot of these people are new to meetings. They perhaps don't know perhaps what's involved. But TAN 8, basically, has got 7 strategic search areas. 3 of them are based all around us in mid Wales, all around Montgomeryshire, either in or just outskirting Montgomeryshire. And what TAN 8 says, it's purely a Welsh Government policy, or it's their technical advice note to their policy. It effectively says, Welsh Government has said, please wind farm developers, come to Mid Wales, we welcome you here. And of course, that's what wind farm developers have done, because their Welsh Government has encouraged them to come here. And then what happens is that when they come here, and we challenge Carwyn Jones and the Welsh Government on that, because as a result of your policy, we're now facing what we're facing, and they turn around and say, well, it's not our decision, they're making the decision over there. That's what's happening. Is there any more questions? Because some people might have questions on other issues outside of this. So, yeah, there's one more question over at the back here.
My name is Angel, and I'm with MAP and NOW and TRAPP now as well. I don't know whether my question's relevant. It's more of a concern that I've seen within the local community that a lot of our workforce and skilled labour are actually having to go and work for some of these energy companies to maintain wind farms because we have a shortage of jobs in the local area. And this is obviously causing a lot of concern within families, splitting up community, breaking up the unity that we have, because these people are being forced to go outside of the area to work for wind farm companies to basically pay and provide for their families. Looking at what a lot of the local labourers are on, some of them are on minimum wages. And I find this very sort of quite saddening and quite concerning because we've got a double action here going on. It's like we don't want this to come into the area, but at the same time a lot of our workforce are being forced to go and work for them. So I just wondered what the Welsh Government were thinking, how can we regenerate jobs within the communities if we manage to win this and not have the wind farms into Mid Wales, then we'll probably be the only green part of the country left. It's just a theory and question.
Yeah. But of course the Welsh Government are supportive of wind energy, and the UK Government are. That's their, the lines of both governments. But but to me, it's not in one sense, the wind farm developers are not our enemies. It's the politicians that are our enemies. I mean, wind farm developers are just reacting to politicians and what governments want. So, I wouldn't take issue with somebody who worked for a wind farm company who lived locally. I mean, some people would, but I mean, that's their choice to make. And my gripe is with politicians that have got a different view to me, not with the wind farm companies who are just reacting to government policy.
Thank you.
One at the back. Last one, someone said. Just remember to identify yourself.
My name is Bob Wright and I'm chair of the Classer Community Centre. And I know what's been said about TAN 8 and the areas which have been defined by the Welsh Assembly. But what we are currently concerned about are the single applications, and one in particular at Garput, which completely dominates Classer and is between here and Classer, where there is an application, well not an application, but there's a screening process which has been started in respect of a single turbine, which is in excess of 200 foot high, and which is going to completely dominate the local environment. Now this seems to be outside the TAN 8 area, but it's nevertheless an application which could well receive favourable consideration. And it's these single applications which, in our view, are equally important in terms of the blight on the environment, and it's something which ought to be addressed not just by the Assembly but also by the County Council.
I think it's a shame really, because one speaker that perhaps it would be good to answer that would be Councillor Graham Brown, who's the new portfolio holder for planning on the County Council, and he knows more about that particular issue than I, but that is something I know that he shares your concern on that issue. And I mean the issue to me is there's one part that says, well, there's only one wind turbine, that's fine, this isn't a wind farm. But of course my concern is that if once you've got one single turbine, it sets a precedence then. And then of course then it sets a precedence for another one, another one, another one. But I know that what the County Council is seeking to do, I think what Graham Brown is seeking to do as the councillor responsible, is to ensure that all single turbine applications go to the planning committee, which they don't always at the moment, is my understanding. I might be wrong on that. But one issue is on that is that there are a few single turbine applications that have gone to the local community council or town council, and there's been no objection to them. So I think it's imperative on people that if they want their views to be aired on that, and they want their community council to represent their views, that they keep a close eye on any applications that are coming forward, and they write to their community council with that. Because if the community council is just made up of people, everyday people in the community, and if they're not aware of the views, then they'll say there's no objection to them, and if the community council doesn't object to them, when it gets to the county council, that obviously the county council look on that differently. So I think people have got to be a lot more prepared to sort of lobby their community council and make sure their views are known to the community council, because I think there's one or two, but sneak through is the wrong word, but there's been a misunderstanding in the community, and then before you know it, the community council has accepted it and it's gone then to the county council. Well, I mean, your views is, I share your views. When I think that was the last question, but perhaps people have got other questions, but they might be perhaps outside of what I was talking about or outside of the Cardiff issue, really. So there'll be a chance, I think, Bruce, at the end to ask questions that are more general. And Joy, when Glyn comes in, I'll make sure I raise your point to him about David Jones as well. Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Russell.